What if I told you that some of history's most famous artifacts, objects whispered about in legends, fought over in wars, and hunted by adventurers for centuries, might still be hiding secrets even modern science can't fully explain? Think of the Ark of the Covenant, said to hold the power of gods, or the Holy Grail, a cup rumored to grant eternal life. These aren't just relics of myth, they're real mysteries buried in our past, waiting to be unraveled. And today, we're diving deep into 35 of the most astonishing stories behind these legendary artifacts, tales that will challenge everything you thought you knew about history. Some of these objects are so enigmatic, they've sparked endless debates among scholars, treasure hunters, and even governments. Did you know there are claims that certain artifacts possess unexplainable energies, or that some were crafted with technologies far beyond their time? From long-lost treasures of ancient kings to cursed relics that defy logic, these aren't just dusty museum pieces, they're keys to forgotten worlds, each with a story more incredible than the last. But here's the thing. While you might recognize a few famous names, like the spear said to have pierced Christ's side or the eerie crystal skulls of the Maya, most of these artifacts remain shrouded in obscurity. That's what makes this journey so thrilling. Together, we'll uncover hidden histories, decode baffling riddles, and maybe even question whether some of these objects were truly made by human hands. So, if you're ready to step into a world where history and mystery collide, where legends might just be waiting to be proven true, then hold on tight. Because what you're about to discover will leave you utterly spellbound. Picture this, a corroded lump of bronze and wood pulled from the wreckage of a 2,000-year-old Greek ship, resting silently at the bottom of the Aegean Sea. At first glance, it looked like nothing more than a broken piece of ancient scrap until researchers realized it was the most sophisticated mechanical device the ancient world had ever produced. This is the Antikythera Mechanism, a hand-sized wonder so advanced it wouldn't be matched for over 1,000 years after its creation. Inside this intricate bronze box lay a maze of interlocking gears, precisely calibrated to track the movements of the sun, moon, and planets with jaw-dropping accuracy. It could predict lunar eclipses, chart the positions of celestial bodies, and even account for irregularities in the moon's orbit. Functions so complex, historians once believed such technology didn't exist until the Renaissance. Yet here it was, a relic from the 1st century BC, operating on principles that would stump European clockmakers until the 14th century. Who built this marvel? The leading theory points to Greek scholars from Rhodes, possibly influenced by the legendary mathematician Archimedes himself. But here's the real mystery. Why did this knowledge disappear? After the Antikythera Mechanism, similar devices vanish from the historical record for over a millennium. Some speculate that the fall of ancient empires scattered or destroyed these secrets, while others wonder if only a handful of geniuses ever understood the technology in the first place. What's even more astonishing is how close we came to never knowing it existed. The mechanism was only discovered in 1901 by sponge divers who stumbled upon the shipwreck entirely by chance. Had they swum just a few meters in another direction, humanity might still be in the dark about this ancient precursor to modern computing. That's the haunting beauty of history. Sometimes the most extraordinary clues to our past lie hidden in plain sight, waiting centuries for the right moment to be found. Now imagine holding a book so enigmatic that even the brightest cryptographers, historians, and codebreakers, including those who cracked Nazi ciphers during World War II, have spent decades staring at its pages in utter frustration. This is the Voynich Manuscript, a 240-page puzzle bound in vellum, filled with swirling, unreadable text and illustrations of plants that don't seem to exist on Earth. Named after the rare book dealer Wilfrid Voynich, who discovered it in 1912, this artifact has become the ultimate intellectual ghost story, taunting experts with its secrets for over 600 years. Flip through its pages and you'll encounter a menagerie of the inexplicable, delicate drawings of roots and herbs with no known biological matches, elaborate astrological charts mapping celestial bodies in impossible configurations, and even dozens of naked women bathing in what appears to be a network of green, interconnected pools. But the real heart of the mystery lies in the script itself, a flowing, handwritten language of 25 to 30 unique characters, arranged in patterns that defy every known linguistic structure. Some letters repeat in ways no human language should, while others cluster like code, leading researchers down endless rabbit holes. The theories surrounding this manuscript are as wild as its content. Medieval alchemists believed it held the formula for the Philosopher's Stone. Cold War codebreakers suspected it was an elaborate 16th century hoax. And in more recent years, fringe researchers have even proposed extraterrestrial origins, pointing to the otherworldly plants as evidence. But here's what makes the Voynich manuscript especially maddening. Modern carbon dating confirms it was created between 1404 and 1438, yet its author, purpose, and even the continent of its origin remain hotly debated. Perhaps most fascinating are the failed attempts to crack its code. In 2014, a team claimed to have identified Mexican influences in the plant illustrations, suggesting a New World connection only for botanists to debunk the theory. Another study argued the text was a form of encrypted Hebrew, but the translation yielded gibberish. Even artificial intelligence has been thrown at the problem, with algorithms detecting faint patterns but no coherent meaning. It's as if the manuscript was designed to resist understanding, a deliberate labyrinth with no exit. So why does this book still captivate us? Because it represents the ultimate test of human curiosity. In a world where we've mapped the human genome and explored the surface of Mars, the Voynich manuscript remains a humbling reminder that some puzzles refuse to surrender. Maybe it's a lost language, an elaborate cipher, or something far stranger. But one thing's certain, until its secrets are laid bare, this ancient tome will continue to whisper to us from the shadows of history, daring anyone, to finally understand its story. Buried in the dusty archives of the National Museum of Iraq lies an object so unassuming, you might mistake it for an ordinary clay pot until you peer inside. This is the Baghdad Battery, a collection of fist-sized terracotta jars dating back 2,000 years to the Parthian Empire. Each one contains a copper cylinder housing an iron rod, sealed with asphalt at the top. Fill it with vinegar or grape juice and something extraordinary happens. It generates electricity. That's right, these ancient jars may have been the world's first batteries, predating modern ones by millennia. The discovery, made in 1936 near modern-day Baghdad, sent shockwaves through the archaeological community. When German researcher Wilhelm Koenig tested the jars' conductivity, he found they could produce around 1 volt of power, enough to electroplate gold onto silver, a technique used in ancient jewelry from the region. Some theories suggest priests used these devices to create miraculous glowing statues in temples, while others propose they were early medical tools for pain relief through mild electric currents. But not everyone's convinced. Skeptics argue the jars might have simply stored sacred scrolls, with the asphalt acting as a seal to protect parchment from moisture. After all, no wires or electroplated artifacts have been found alongside them. Yet the precision of their construction is hard to ignore. The copper and iron were deliberately chosen for their electrochemical properties, and the asphalt seal would have prevented short-circuiting. Even more puzzling, ancient texts from the time mention techniques for applying gold to silver that eerily resemble electroplating. This tiny artifact forces us to rethink the timeline of human innovation. If these were indeed batteries, why did the knowledge vanish for 1800 years? Did other civilizations stumble upon similar secrets, only for them to be lost in war or simply forgotten? The Baghdad Battery stands as a silent challenge to our modern arrogance, proof that brilliance isn't linear. and that ancient minds may have unlocked mysteries we're only now beginning to rediscover. High above the barren plains of southern Peru, etched into the desert floor with astonishing precision, lies one of archaeology's greatest riddles, the Nazca Lines. Stretching across nearly 200 square miles, these colossal geoglyphs depict everything from towering hummingbirds and spiraling spiders to geometric shapes, so vast they can only be fully seen from the air. Some stretch over 1,200 feet long, their clean, unbroken lines defying erosion for over 2,000 years. How did an ancient culture without flight or modern tools create art meant to be viewed from the heavens? And more importantly, why? Theories about the Nazca Lines range from the scholarly to the sensational. In the 1960s, Swiss author Erich von Däniken popularized the idea that these markings were landing strips for alien spacecraft, pointing to their aerial visibility and the region's lack of natural landmarks. While mainstream science dismisses this, the sheer scale of the design still begs the question: did the Nazca people collaborate with outsiders possessing advanced technology? Or is the truth even more intriguing? Archaeologists have uncovered compelling evidence that the lines served as ritual pathways, walked by priests during ceremonies to summon rain from the parched earth. Recent drone surveys reveal previously hidden ceremonial mounds along the paths where offerings of pottery and shells were buried. Even more striking, researchers using satellite imagery discovered that many animal glyphs align with underground water sources, suggesting the Nazca mapped aquifers through their art, a desperate prayer to deities for life-giving water in one of the driest places on Earth. But perhaps the most mind-bending revelation came in 2019, when a team using AI analysis found that the line's placement corresponds to celestial events. The spider glyph, for instance, mirrors the Orion constellation during the winter solstice, while a massive monkey figure aligns with the Milky Way during harvest season. This wasn't just art, it was a cosmic calendar etched into the land to mark sacred moments in time. The Nazca Lines remind us that ancient civilizations often saw the world in ways we're only beginning to grasp. While we may never know every secret behind these desert drawings, one thing is clear: they stand as a testament to human ingenuity, a bridge between earth and sky, crafted by hands that dreamed far beyond the horizon. Hanging in the dim light of Turin's cathedral, a 14-foot-long linen cloth displays the faint, haunting imprint of a crucified man, a face crowned with thorns, wounds at the wrists and feet, and what appears to be a spear gash in the side. This is the Shroud of Turin, revered by millions as the burial cloth of Jesus Christ and dismissed by others as an elaborate medieval forgery. The debate over its authenticity isn't just about science versus faith, it's a collision of history, technology, and mystery that's raged for centuries. First photographed in 1898, the shroud revealed something astonishing under the camera's eye. The image on the cloth acted like a photographic negative, with startling three-dimensional details invisible to the naked eye. Bloodstains matched the wounds described in gospel accounts, from the crown of thorns to the scourge marks across the back. Forensic experts even identified traces of Roman-era pollen from plants native to Jerusalem, as if the cloth had journeyed from the ancient Holy Land. But in 1988, radiocarbon dating sent shockwaves through the Catholic world. 3 independent labs dated the linen to between 1260 and 1390, squarely in the Middle Ages. Case closed, not quite. Critics of the carbon dating results point to contamination. The tested sample came from a corner repaired after a fire in the 1500s, where medieval threads could have mixed with older ones. More startlingly, 21st century microscopy revealed biological evidence inconsistent with a forgery. Traces of human DNA from across the Mediterranean, along with proteins suggesting severe trauma in the imprinted body, exactly what you'd expect from a crucifixion victim. Even the image itself defies replication. No known medieval technique could have created the shroud's superficial, non-pigmented markings, which resemble a scorch but lack the chemical residues of paint, dye, or heat. The shroud's most baffling quality, its image behaves like no other artifact. Studies in 2009 showed the faint imprint carries encoded distance information akin to a primitive 3D map, something no forger of any era could have conceived. Some researchers propose it resulted from a burst of ultraviolet light, while others whisper of divine intervention. What keeps this debate alive isn't just faith or science, it's the shroud's uncanny refusal to fit neatly into any category. For every test labeling it a fake, another reveals an anomaly no medieval artisan could have engineered. Whether it's a miracle, a masterpiece of forgotten technology, or something in between, the Shroud of Turin remains a mirror held up to our deepest questions. What do we truly know about the past? And how far are we willing to let evidence take us into the unknown? Deep in the humid jungles of Central America, stories swirl around a set of eerie, life-sized skulls carved from pure quartz crystal so flawless they seem almost otherworldly. These are the infamous crystal skulls, objects that have fueled everything from archaeological debates to Hollywood blockbusters like Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Legend claims they were crafted by ancient Mesoamerican civilizations, the Maya or the Aztecs, imbued with mystical powers, and perhaps even left behind by extraterrestrials. But the truth behind these shimmering relics is far stranger than fiction. The most famous of these skulls, the Mitchell-Hedges skull, surfaced in the 1920s under murky circumstances. Adventurer F.A. Mitchell-Hedges claimed his daughter discovered it beneath a collapsed altar in Belize, though records suggest he may have bought it at a London auction. What's undeniable is its craftsmanship. The skull's jaw detaches, its surfaces are polished to optical smoothness, and it reflects light in ways that defy the tools supposedly available to pre-Columbian cultures. For decades, this fueled speculation that advanced or even alien hands had shaped it, but science has since cast a harsh light on these myths. Microscopic analysis in the 2000s revealed telltale marks of rotary wheels and abrasives, tools not used in the Americas before European contact. Trace elements in the quartz pointed to mines in Madagascar or Brazil, not Mesoamerica, and the skull's near-perfect symmetry, that's a hallmark of 19th century European lapidary techniques, not ancient artistry. The smoking gun came in 2008 when the British Museum and Smithsonian tested their skulls. All showed traces of modern polishing compounds, dating them no earlier than the 1800s. So why did these fakes capture global imagination? Part of it ties to the era of their discovery. The late 1800s saw a craze for lost civilizations from Atlantis to Lemuria as Western collectors scrambled to own exotic artifacts. The skulls tapped into romanticized myths of noble savages possessing secret wisdom, a narrative that overshadowed real indigenous achievements. Even today, their allure persists, blurring the line between archaeology and fantasy. Perhaps the greatest irony, while the skulls themselves are modern, their inspiration might not be. Spanish accounts describe Aztec priests using crystal objects in divination, and real carved quartz artifacts, though far cruder, have been found at Maya sites. The hoaxers may have stolen fragments of truth, wrapping them in layers of deception. That's the real mystery here, not who made the crystal skulls, but why we so desperately wanted them to be real. In chasing legends, did we overlook the genuine wonders hidden in plain sight? In a dusty cave near the ruins of Qumran in 1947, a young Bedouin shepherd tossed a rock into the darkness and heard the unmistakable sound of shattered pottery. What he stumbled upon would ignite one of the most explosive archaeological discoveries of the 20th century, the Dead Sea Scrolls. Hidden in clay jars for 2,000 years, these fragile fragments of parchment and papyrus contained the oldest known versions of the Hebrew Bible, along with texts that would rewrite our understanding of Jewish life during the tumultuous era when Christianity was born. The scrolls' impact on biblical scholarship can't be overstated. Before their discovery, the earliest complete Hebrew scriptures dated to the 9th century CE, the Masoretic text painstakingly copied by medieval scribes. But the Dead Sea Scrolls pushed that timeline back a full 1,000 years, revealing versions of books like Isaiah and Deuteronomy nearly identical to today's Bible, proving the astonishing accuracy of oral and scribbled traditions. Yet other scrolls deviated sharply, with alternate commandments, unknown psalms, and even a bizarre war scroll detailing an apocalyptic battle between the sons of light and sons of darkness. These weren't just religious texts, they were a window into the feverish spiritual landscape that birthed both rabbinic Judaism and early Christianity. But secrecy and controversy have always shadowed these artifacts. For decades after their discovery, a small circle of scholars monopolized access, leading to whispers of suppressed scrolls that might challenge orthodox beliefs. Conspiracy theories flourished. Were there scrolls linking Jesus to the Essenes, the ascetic Jewish sect many believe authored the texts? Did Vatican pressure keep certain fragments hidden? The truth, while less dramatic, is still gripping. When the full corpus was finally released in the 1990s, scholars found tantalizing hints, like a pierced Messiah text describing a suffering leader and a Son of God figure who mirrored Christian theology. What makes the scrolls truly revolutionary is their portrait of a faith in flux. Here were Jews practicing baptism centuries before John the Baptist, awaiting a messianic age with dual saviors, one priestly, one royal. Some scrolls even echoed Jesus' teachings, like the Beatitudes in the Community Rule. Coincidence, shared cultural currents, or evidence of ideas that would later crystallize into Christianity? The scrolls refuse to give easy answers, leaving us with a humbling truth. History's most transformative moments often emerge from the margins, preserved not in grand temples, but in forgotten jars, waiting for a shepherd's errant stone to bring them back into the light. In the sweltering summer of 1799, a team of French soldiers under Napoleon's command were demolishing an old wall near the Egyptian town of Rosetta when their shovels struck something far harder than mud brick, a slab of black basalt etched with writing in 3 distinct scripts. Little did they know, they just uncovered the single most important linguistic discovery in history, the Rosetta Stone. This unassuming chunk of rock, roughly the size of a coffee table, would become the master key to unlocking secrets buried for over 1,000 years, the enigmatic hieroglyphs of ancient Egypt. At first glance, the stone's inscription seemed ordinary. A decree from 1960 BC praising the young pharaoh Ptolemy V, written in formal hieroglyphs, demotic the everyday script of Egyptians and ancient Greek. But here's why this trifecta of languages was revolutionary. Greek was already well understood by scholars. By comparing the known Greek text to the unknown hieroglyphs, linguists suddenly had a linguistic bridge, a way to crack a code that had baffled Europe for centuries. Before this, hieroglyphs were thought to be purely symbolic, a mystical language of pictures with no connection to spoken sounds. The Rosetta Stone proved otherwise. Enter Jean-François Champollion, a French scholar obsessed with Egypt since childhood. While others struggled, he noticed something startling. Certain hieroglyph groups appeared as frequently as Ptolemy's name in the Greek text. He theorized these were phonetic, that hieroglyphs could represent sounds, not just ideas. Using the stone and his knowledge of Coptic, a later Egyptian language, Champollion painstakingly matched hieroglyphic symbols to Greek letters, finally announcing his breakthrough in 1822. The stone hadn't just translated a single decree, it had given humanity the tools to read an entire civilization's history. Napoleon's role in this story is as ironic as it is pivotal. Though his Egyptian campaign ended in military failure, the scholars he brought, the so-called savants, documented temples, collected artifacts, and preserved the Rosetta Stone. When the British defeated France in 1801, they claimed the stone as part of their treaty. Today, it sits in the British Museum, a spoil of war that became a gift to the world. What makes the Rosetta Stone more than just a translation tool is the sheer volume of history it resurrected. Before its discovery, pharaohs' names were guesses, temple inscriptions mere artwork, and entire dynasties lost to silence. Now we could hear Ramses the Great boast of his victories in his own words, understand the Book of the Dead's funeral rites, and trace the rise and fall of empires through their own records. It's a reminder that language isn't just communication, it's the heartbeat of civilizations, and sometimes all it takes is one cracked code to bring the past roaring back to life. Imagine holding a palm-sized clay disc, its surface covered in spiraling symbols so bizarre they look like they belong to another world. This is the Phaistos disc, unearthed in 1908 in the ruins of a Minoan palace on Crete. At 4,000 years old, it's one of the most baffling artifacts ever discovered, a swirling riddle of 45 unique pictograms, stamped into clay with precision no one has been able to decipher. No other text like it exists, no Rosetta Stone offers a key, and that's exactly what makes it irresistible. The disc's symbols range from the familiar human figures, fish, birds, to the utterly cryptic, a helmeted head with feather-like protrusions, something resembling a beehive, and marks that might be shields or even musical instruments. What's weirder, each symbol was pressed into the clay using individual stamps, making this the earliest known example of movable type, a technology that wouldn't reappear until Gutenberg's printing press 3,000 years later. Why did this innovation vanish for millennia, and what urgent message warranted such a laborious method? Scholars have thrown every theory at the disc. Some believe it's a religious hymn pointing to the repetition of certain symbols like the walking man and woman with raised arms, which might denote a chorus or prayer. Others argue it's a legal document or calendar, noting clusters of signs that could represent months or lunar cycles. Then there's the wild card. A 2010 study suggested the symbols resemble Linear A, the undeciphered script of the Minoans but rearranged in a cipher. Imagine writing English words backward in Greek letters. That's the level of complexity we're dealing with. Theories get even stranger outside academia. One linguist claimed the text is an ancient narrative about a pregnant goddess, while another proposed it's a board game's rulebook. Conspiracy theorists aren't far behind, insisting the disc's spiral pattern mirrors crop circles or encodes alien contact. But here's the catch. Without more examples of this script, no other artifacts bear these stamps. The disc is a linguistic island. It's like trying to solve a crossword puzzle with only one clue. What truly haunts researchers is the disc's isolation. Found in a palace that also housed linear tablets, it's as if someone dropped a single CD-ROM into a library of parchment scrolls. Was it a foreign diplomat's letter, a cult object smuggled from afar, or perhaps a failed prototype abandoned when no one could read it? The Minoans left no answers. Only this silent clay circles a mystery wrapped in spirals, daring us to crack a code that's defied centuries of scrutiny. Until another disc surfaces, if it ever does, this Bronze Age enigma will keep its secrets locked tighter than the labyrinth of Knossos itself. In the summer of 1936, a couple hiking along the banks of Texas's Red Creek made a discovery that would baffle scientists for decades. Embedded in a chunk of 400-million-year-old rock was what appeared to be a perfectly ordinary hammer, its wooden handle partially petrified, its iron head fused seamlessly into the ancient stone. This is the London hammer, an artifact so out of place, it sparked wild theories ranging from lost advanced civilizations to literal time travelers leaving tools behind. At first glance, the hammer's design seems unmistakably modern. The iron head is unmistakably 19th century in style, with a distinctive shape and beveled edges consistent with American mining tools from the 1800s. But here's where things get weird. The rock encasing it dates to the Ordovician period, a time when Earth's only life forms were primitive sea creatures like trilobites long before trees existed to provide wood for handles, let alone humans to forge metal. How could a tool from the industrial age end up locked inside prehistoric stone? Geologists have proposed a few possible explanations, though none without controversy. The most accepted theory suggests the hammer wasn't originally inside the rock at all, but rather became encased over time through a natural process called concretion. Minerals in the creek water could have gradually built up around the tool, hardening into stone over centuries. But even this leaves gaps. The hammer's handle shows signs of partial petrification, a process that typically takes millions of years, not a few hundred. And why hasn't the rest of the iron head rusted away entirely? Then there are the more radical interpretations. Some researchers point to the hammer's unusual metallurgy. Tests in the 1980s revealed the iron lacks impurities common in modern smelting, with a chlorine-infused purity that's bizarre by contemporary standards. Could this be evidence of a forgotten pre-flood civilization, as some creationists argue? Or might it have slipped through a rift in time, as sci-fi enthusiasts love to speculate? Skeptics, meanwhile, cry hoax. They note the hammer was only discovered by a local landowner who refused to disclose the exact location of the find, raising suspicions of a planted artifact. But even if it were a prank, the hammer's geological context is hard to dismiss. The rock's composition matches the local Ordovician strata, and no tool markings or artificial cuts have been found on the surrounding stone to suggest tampering. What makes the London hammer so compelling isn't just its mystery, it's what it represents. For believers, it's a crack in the official timeline of human progress, proof that history might be far stranger than we've been taught. For scientists, it's a frustrating outlier, a reminder that nature sometimes serves up puzzles defying easy answers. And for the rest of us, it's a delicious thought experiment. If this unassuming tool truly doesn't belong in its ancient tomb, what other chapters of our past might we have gotten wrong? High in the remote mountains of China's Bayanhar region, a story persists about a set of strange, ancient stone discs. Some say they're artifacts from an extraterrestrial encounter buried 12,000 years ago. These are the infamous Dropa stones, a collection of circular, grooved objects allegedly discovered in 1938 by archaeologist Kai Pu-te. According to the legend, the stones bore tiny hieroglyphic-like inscriptions that, when translated, told an astonishing tale of alien spacecraft crashing into Earth, leaving their stranded passengers, the Dropa people, to integrate with local tribes. It's the kind of story that ignites imaginations, fueling decades of UFO lore and speculation about ancient astronauts. But here's the twist: no credible evidence has ever surfaced to prove these discs existed at all. The first red flag: the only accounts of the Dropa stones come from a handful of sensational articles published in fringe magazines during the 1960s, long after the supposed discovery. The original expedition notes the discs themselves and any academic records from Kai Pu-te have never been found. Even more suspicious, the story gained traction during the height of the Cold War, when UFO mania was sweeping the globe and governments were leaking fabricated alien narratives as propaganda. The timing was perfect. Just as the space race had people looking to the stars for answers, the Dropa stones offered a tantalizing proof that we weren't alone. Then there's the so-called translation. The discs were said to describe a race of beings with oversized heads and spindly bodies who descended from the clouds in a crash-landed vessel. But linguists point out glaring inconsistencies. The script supposedly resembled no known writing system, and the translations emerged decades after the discovery with no independent verification. Even the name Dropa raises eyebrows. It doesn't align with any documented ethnic group in the region. Modern investigations have exposed even deeper cracks in the myth. Chinese archaeologists have thoroughly searched the caves where the stones were said to be found. turning up nothing but ordinary Neolithic tools. Geologists who have examined similar-looking stone discs from the area confirm they're nothing more than ceremonial by ancient Chinese artifacts used in burial rites, common objects misrepresented to fit an otherworldly narrative. So why does the Dropa legend persist? Because it taps into something deeper than facts, our fascination with the idea that history might hold cosmic secrets. The stones became a blank canvas, a way to project our extraterrestrial fantasies onto the past. And in a world where declassified government UFO files and viral conspiracy theories dominate headlines, the line between archaeology and science fiction keeps blurring. The real mystery isn't whether aliens visited ancient China, it's why we're so desperate to believe they did. Tucked away in the Cairo Museum's storage rooms sits an unassuming wooden artifact that looks startlingly out of place among Egypt's usual relics of gods and pharaohs. This is the Saqqara bird, a delicate 6-inch-long carving discovered in 1898 near the stepped pyramid of Saqqara. At first glance, it resembles a simple bird except for one glaring anomaly. Its wings aren't shaped like any known avian species. Instead, they're perfectly straight with a precise aerofoil cross-section identical to modern aircraft wings. The tail fin, unlike the horizontal spread of bird tails, it's vertical, just like a plane stabilizer. And that's where the controversy begins, because this 2,000-year-old artifact seems to defy everything we thought ancient Egyptians knew about aerodynamics. Aviation experts who have examined the Saqqara bird can't ignore its uncanny resemblance to a glider. When scaled up and tested in wind tunnels, models based on its design exhibit remarkable lift capabilities. The curve of its wings distributes air pressure exactly as modern engineers would recommend, and that vertical tailfin prevents side-to-side drift, a feature useless for birds but critical for man-made aircraft. Even more intriguing, Egyptologist Dr. Kolul Messiha noted the artifact's underside bears markings where a stabilizer bar might have been attached, suggesting it wasn't just a static carving but a functional model. Could this have been a prototype, a forgotten blueprint for human flight centuries before Da Vinci sketched his ornithopter? Skeptics, of course, have other explanations. Some argue it's a stylized falcon, perhaps a child's toy or a ceremonial object tied to the sky god Horus. But that doesn't account for the deliberate aerodynamic features absent in all other Egyptian bird carvings. Others propose it's a throw stick, a type of hunting tool, except no similar artifacts curve upward at the tips like the Saqqara bird's wings. Then there's the cultural context. Ancient Egyptian texts mention winged barks used by gods to traverse the heavens, and hieroglyphs depict fantastical flying machines. Were these purely mythological, or could they hint at lost technical knowledge? The most tantalizing theory comes from a surprising source: ancient Egyptian craftsmanship manuals. Hieratic script fragments describe workers using lightweight wood and precise ratios to construct ceremonial objects that catch the wind. Could temple artisans have stumbled upon principles of flight while designing ritual objects? Without more artifacts like the Saqqara bird, we're left with a maddening puzzle. Either this is an astonishing coincidence, a bird carving that accidentally mirrors aerospace engineering, or a whisper from a past far more technologically curious than we've dared to imagine. What makes the Saqqara bird impossible to dismiss is its singularity. It doesn't fit neatly into any known category of Egyptian art. Not quite a toy, not quite a god, it hovers between worlds, much like the possibility it represents. Whether it's proof of ancient aviation or simply a testament to human creativity, one thing's certain: this little wooden artifact forces us to reconsider just how high the ambitions of our ancestors might have soared. Buried beneath layers of seashells and charcoal in an ancient Native American midden along the coast of Maine, a tiny silver coin no bigger than a fingernail sparked a firestorm in archaeological circles. This is the Maine penny, a Norwegian coin minted between 1065 and 1080 during the reign of King Olaf Kyrre. yet inexplicably found over 3,000 miles from its homeland, nestled among artifacts from a 12th century Penobscot settlement. If genuine, this unassuming relic could rewrite the history of transatlantic contact, proving Vikings reached farther into North America than we ever imagined. But the truth, as always, is tangled in layers of skepticism, missed opportunities, and a dash of archaeological intrigue. The coin's discovery in 1957 during a dig at the Goddard site, a prosperous native trading hub, should have been front-page news. Instead, it sat quietly in a collection for nearly 2 decades before numismatists identified its origin. Struck with a crude cross and the Latin inscription, Olaf Rex, King Olaf, the penny matches coins found in Norse settlements like Trondheim. But here's the catch: no other Viking artifacts were found at the site. No tools, no ship fragments, not even a single Norse hairpin. So how did this lone coin end up in a Wabanaki shell heap? Historians are split into 3 camps. The first insists this is smoking gun evidence of Norse trade with native peoples centuries before Columbus. They point to sagas like the Vinland sagas, which describe encounters between Vikings and indigenous groups. Perhaps this coin was a trade item, passed hand to hand until it reached Maine. The second camp argues it's a hoax or a careless misfile, noting the coin was found by amateur archaeologists who might have accidentally dropped it during excavation. But the most compelling theory, medieval drift, here's how it might have happened. Norse explorers sailing near Newfoundland could have lost a pouch of coins overboard. Ocean currents, which naturally carry debris from Europe to North America's eastern shores, might have deposited the penny on a Maine beach where a curious Wabanaki collector picked it up. After all, indigenous peoples along the Atlantic coast prized exotic objects, copper from the Great Lakes, shells from the Carolinas, so a shiny foreign disc would have been a fascinating trinket, not currency. The debate took a sharp turn in 2016 when researchers analyzed the coin's surface chemistry. Unlike most excavated Norse silver, which shows heavy oxidation, the Maine penny was oddly pristine. Critics seized on this, claiming it had been planted, but supporters countered that the coin was found near shellfish remains, whose acidic environment could have preserved its luster. Even the Smithsonian, which now houses the penny, hedges its bets, labeling it probably genuine but archaeologically unproven. What makes the Maine penny so gripping isn't just the what-if of Viking voyages, it's the messy reality of archaeological interpretation. One stray artifact can tilt entire timelines, but without context, it's just a whisper in the dark. Maybe Vikings did trade with the Wabanaki. Maybe a storm tossed a Norseman's pocket change onto these shores. Or maybe, centuries from now, someone will dig up a modern euro in the woods and spin theories about 21st century Europeans colonizing Maine. History, after all, is written by the victors, but sometimes it's rewritten by the tiniest scraps of silver. Rising from a barren hilltop in rural Georgia, a cluster of towering granite slabs stood as one of modern history's most enigmatic monuments until explosives reduced them to rubble in a single night. The Georgia Guidestones, erected in 1980, weren't just a local oddity. They were a 10-part manifesto carved in 8 languages, offering cryptic instructions for rebuilding civilization after an unspecified global catastrophe. Dubbed America's Stonehenge, their origins were as shrouded in mystery as their purpose, commissioned by a man using the pseudonym R.C. Christian, a name many believe was a nod to the secretive Rosicrucian order. The monument's 10 guidelines ranged from the practical, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature, to the eerie, be not a cancer on the earth. Each directive was etched with chilling precision, flanked by astronomical features aligning with solstices and equinoxes, suggesting the creators anticipated a future where these markers would guide survivors. But who were these shadowy architects? The only clue came from the stonemason who worked on the project, who recalled Christian as a well-dressed, elderly man paying in cash, claiming to represent a small group of loyal Americans planning far ahead. Conspiracy theories exploded. Were they globalist elites, a doomsday cult, or merely eccentric futurists? The Guidestones became a lightning rod for controversy. Environmentalists praised their call for ecological harmony, while anti-government groups decried them as proof of a depopulation agenda. The monument's insistence on guiding reproduction and uniting humanity with a living new language fueled dystopian fears. Then, in July 2022, the unthinkable happened. A pre-dawn bomb blast shattered the slabs, followed by their complete demolition by authorities citing safety concerns. The timing raised eyebrows just as interest in the Guidestones peaked online. Their physical erasure coincided with a surge in theories about suppressed knowledge. What lingers isn't just the mystery of R.C. Christian's identity, but the eerie relevance of his messages. In an age of climate crises and pandemics, the Guidestones' warnings about balance and sustainability resonate uncomfortably. Were they a blueprint or a warning, a prophecy or a prank? The rubble left behind offers no answers, only a haunting reminder that some secrets are carved not just in stone, but in the tension between what we preserve and what we choose to destroy. In a quiet museum in La Paz, Bolivia, rests an unassuming stone bowl that shouldn't exist, at least not according to conventional history. Known as the Fuente Magna, this shallow vessel bears inscriptions that send chills down the spines of linguists. Cuneiform script, the wedge-shaped writing system of ancient Mesopotamia, etched into its surface. But here's the problem. This artifact was found near Lake Titicaca, over 7,000 miles from where Sumerian civilization flourished. If authentic, it could shatter our understanding of pre-Columbian America, suggesting transoceanic contact millennia before Columbus. Yet the mere existence of this bowl has sparked one of archaeology's fiercest authenticity debates. Discovered in the 1950s by a farmer near the ruins of Tiwanaku, the Fuente Magna initially drew little attention. It wasn't until decades later that researchers noticed the markings resembled Proto-Sumerian script, a writing system used around 3000 BCE. Some inscriptions appear to reference the Sumerian goddess Nia, while others match symbols for divinity and temple. Even more perplexing, the bowl's interior features zoomorphic carvings of local Andean animals, blending Mesopotamian and South American artistic styles. How could two cultures separated by oceans and epochs have shared written language? Skeptics dismiss the bowl as an elaborate hoax, pointing to gaps in its provenance. No archaeological team documented its excavation, and the farmer who found it reportedly sold it to a local collector without scientific oversight. Critics also highlight inconsistencies in the script. Some characters are oddly spaced or reversed, mistakes unlikely in genuine Sumerian craftsmanship. Yet supporters counter with compelling evidence. Metallurgical analysis confirms the bowl's stone matches local quarries, and the patina covering the inscriptions shows ancient weathering patterns. Most tellingly, Semitic language expert Dr. Clyde Winters translated portions as a dedication to a fertility goddess, a plausible link given to Tiwanaku's own Earth Mother worship. The implications are staggering. If the Fuente Magna is genuine, it suggests Sumerian sailors or traders reached South America over 4,000 years ago, possibly drawn by the region's rich copper and tin deposits needed for bronze. This wouldn't be entirely unprecedented. The Olmecs, another ancient American civilization, left behind artifacts with striking Afro-Asian features, hinting at earlier transatlantic voyages. But mainstream academia remains wary, and without more examples of cuneiform in the Americas, the bowl sits in limbo, too tantalizing to ignore, too controversial to embrace. Perhaps the most intriguing clue lies in Bolivia's own folklore. Local legends speak of bearded strangers arriving by sea long before the Spanish, bringing advanced knowledge. Could these stories preserve a kernel of truth about Sumerian visitors? Or is the Fuente Magna a modern forgery, crafted to feed nationalist narratives or simply to profit from the antiquities trade. Until new evidence emerges, this enigmatic bowl remains a Rorschach test for history. What you see in its markings says as much about your beliefs as it does about the past. One thing's certain: if authentic, it proves our ancestors were far more connected and far more adventurous than we ever dared to imagine. Off the foggy coast of Nova Scotia lies a small, unassuming island that has driven men to madness, bankruptcy, and even death for over 2 centuries. Oak Island, just 140 acres of maple and pine, holds a secret buried 40 feet below its surface. A labyrinth of flooded tunnels, booby-trapped shafts, and cryptic stone markers collectively known as the Money Pit. Since its discovery in 1795 by a teenager spotting a strange depression in the earth, this waterlogged hole has taunted treasure hunters with whispers of pirate gold, lost Shakespearean plays, even the Holy Grail itself. But is it history's greatest treasure trove or its most elaborate hoax? The legend begins with Daniel Maginnis, who noticed a block and tackle hanging from an oak tree above the depression, a telltale sign of human activity. Digging down, he hit layers of flagstones, charcoal, and wooden platforms every 10 feet, suggesting an engineered structure. By 90 feet, the shaft began flooding uncontrollably, a diabolical trap later linked to 5 artificial flood tunnels fed by the surrounding Atlantic. This was no natural sinkhole. Someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to protect something below. Theories about what something might be span the spectrum from plausible to fantastical. Early searchers believed it held Captain Kidd's plundered pirate gold, while others pointed to the Knights Templar, who allegedly fled Europe with sacred relics after their 14th century persecution. The most tantalizing claim: original manuscripts by Francis Bacon proving he authored Shakespeare's works, hidden by a secret society. Even Franklin Roosevelt joined the hunt in 1909, leaving empty-handed but convinced the pit was no accident. Modern excavations have only deepened the mystery. In 1965, a camera lowered into a borehole captured murky images of what appeared to be chests and human hands, artifacts never recovered. Sonar scans in 2014 revealed anomalous cavities matching man-made chambers. Then, in 2019, a team uncovered a centuries-old lead cross and shards of parchment with traces of ink, reigniting hopes of a literary treasure. Yet skeptics have equally compelling arguments. Geologists note the island's natural limestone dissolves into sinkholes that mimic engineered shafts. The flood tunnels may simply be porous bedrock, and the artifacts, many could have been planted by past treasure hunters eager to attract investors, a cycle that's drained over $300 million from hopeful diggers. What makes Oak Island endure isn't just the promise of gold, it's the psychology of the unsolved. Each clue dangled feels like the last piece of a puzzle, each failure a reason to dig deeper. Whether the pit holds Templar riches or just layers of wishful thinking, one thing's certain: as long as that dirt keeps turning, the hunt will never end. Because sometimes the real treasure isn't what's buried, it's the digging itself. Hidden deep within Sweden's National Library lies a book so massive it takes 2 people to lift it. A medieval manuscript weighing 165 pounds, bound in darkened leather and rumored to carry a curse powerful enough to ruin lives. This is the Codex Gigas, more famously known as the Devil's Bible, a 13th century tome shrouded in a legend so chilling, it blurs the line between sacred scripture and supernatural pact. According to lore, the book was the work of a single desperate monk. Condemned to death for breaking his vows, he struck a midnight bargain, his soul in exchange for completing a copy of the entire Bible in one night. With the devil's help, he allegedly scribed the entire text, adding a haunting full-page portrait of Satan himself midway through. The eerie detail: when researchers analyzed the ink and handwriting centuries later, they made a spine-tingling discovery. The entire manuscript, all 310 parchment leaves, does appear to be the work of one scribe. The uniformity of the script suggests a single mind toiling ceaselessly, prompting the unsettling question, was this a feat of devotion or damnation? Flip through its pages and the Devil's Bible reveals more than just holy text. Alongside the Latin Vulgate Bible, it contains eerie apocalyptic visions, mystical healing spells, and a calendar marking feast days for obscure saints. But the most infamous folio is unmistakable, a grotesque illustration of the devil, crouched alone on a blank page, his clawed hands raised, his tongue lolling from a twisted grin. Stranger still, the opposite page depicts the heavenly city, creating a stark juxtaposition of salvation and sin. Some scholars believe this was a medieval teaching tool, a visual sermon on the consequences of vice. Others whisper that the portrait serves as a signature proof of the scribe's infernal contract. The book's dark reputation isn't just superstition. Over 7 centuries, tragedies have shadowed its keepers. The monastery that first housed it burned to the ground. Swedish soldiers looted it during the 30 Years' War, only for their ship to sink mysteriously in transit, though the manuscript washed ashore unscathed. Even modern researchers report equipment failures and sudden illnesses when studying it. Scientific testing reveals no toxins or physical anomalies, yet the pattern persists, fueling belief in its curse. What makes the Devil's Bible more than a macabre folktale is its unresolved paradox. For all its diabolical imagery, the text itself is impeccably orthodox, painstakingly copied from legitimate scripture. Was the monk's deal merely a metaphor for the exhaustion of such a monumental task? Or does this colossal book truly hold a warning that even the most sacred works can bear the fingerprints of the profane? One thing's certain. In an age of digital archives, the Codex Gigas endures as a visceral relic of humanity's oldest obsession. The fine line between divine inspiration and desperate obsession, inked in midnight and bound in shadows. Beneath a quiet suburban park in West Dunbartonshire, Scotland, lies an ancient slab carved with symbols so perplexing, archaeologists debated for decades whether to keep it hidden from the world. This is the Kochno stone, a 5,000-year-old rock panel stretching 42 feet across, its surface etched with over 90 intricate spirals, concentric circles, and mysterious cup marks. Discovered in 1887 by the Reverend James Harvey, the stone's markings resemble celestial patterns. Some believe they map constellations like Orion or even the Milky Way, while others see them as a prehistoric calendar or a portal to the spirit world. But what truly sets the Kochno stone apart isn't just its age or its cryptic carvings, it's the fact that after years of study, researchers deliberately buried it again in 1965, deciding some mysteries are better left protected than exposed. The stone's most striking feature is its sheer density of symbols. The cup marks small, hemispherical depressions cluster in groups that mirror star formations, while the spirals and rings interlock like a cosmic fingerprint. Dr. Alexander McCallum, who first documented the stone, noted that certain carvings align with solstice sunrises, suggesting Neolithic builders used it as a solar observatory. Even more intriguing, similar motifs appear on stones across Europe, from Ireland's Newgrange to Portugal's Almenda's cromlech, hinting at a shared astronomical language among ancient cultures. But the Kochno stone's complexity surpasses them all, with grooves so precise they've resisted erosion for millennia. Why rebury such a treasure? The answer lies in the 20th century's fraught relationship with ancient sites. After its discovery, the stone became a magnet for vandalism. Visitors chalked over the carvings, children scrawled graffiti, and amateur archaeologists made casts that damaged the surface. By the 1960s, historians faced a grim choice: let the stone deteriorate or hide it to preserve its secrets. They chose the latter, covering it with soil in a radical act of conservation. For 50 years, the Kochno stone slept beneath the earth until 2016, when archaeologists partially excavated it for laser scanning, revealing details invisible to the naked eye. The scans unveiled something astonishing. Faint lines connected the cup marks into constellations, while previously unnoticed carvings resembled comets or supernova. One theory posits the stone records a catastrophic celestial event, like the Crab Nebula's explosion in 1054, visible to Neolithic skywatchers. Others argue the markings are ritualistic, mapping the three worlds of ancient cosmology: Earth, sky, and underworld. But the most provocative idea comes from researchers who believe the stone's patterns encode acoustic properties. When struck, the cup marks produce resonant frequencies, suggesting the stone might have been a prehistoric musical instrument used in ceremonies. Today, the Kochno stone remains mostly buried, a silent sentinel guarding its enigmas. Its fate raises a haunting question. Do we have the right to uncover everything from the past, or are some truths meant to stay whispered in the earth? For now, the stone's secrets are safe, its star maps and spirals waiting, as they have for 5,000 years, for a time when we're ready to truly understand them. Deep within the temple complex of Hathor at Dendera, a series of enigmatic carvings stretch across a shadowy crypt wall. Strange, elongated objects resembling giant glass bulbs, each with a coiling snake inside, capped by what looks like a socket and connected to a box by a twisting cord. These are the so-called Dendera lights, images that have ignited fierce debate between fringe theorists and mainstream archaeologists. To some, these reliefs are smoking gun evidence of ancient Egyptian electrotechnology, depicting working light bulbs powered by forgotten means. To others, they're simply misunderstood religious iconography. So which is it? The truth lies somewhere between the shocking and the sacred. First, let's examine the electric hypothesis. The bulb-like carvings do bear an uncanny resemblance to Crookes tubes, early experimental light bulbs from the 19th century. The filament is represented by a snake, which proponents argue symbolizes the flickering arc of electricity. The socket resembles a lotus flower base, while the connected box could be interpreted as a power source, perhaps a primitive battery like the Baghdad artifact. Engineer Walter Gahn even constructed a working model based on the carvings, demonstrating that such a design could produce light using period plausible materials. If accurate, this would mean ancient Egyptians illuminated their underground chambers not with torches which would have left soot stains absent on temple ceilings, but with arc lamps rewriting the history of technology. Mainstream Egyptologists, however, dismiss this as pareidolia, seeing modern objects in ancient symbols. They point to contextual clues in the reliefs. The bulbs are always held by the god Harsamtus, depicted as a snake emerging from a lotus, a well-documented symbol of creation and rebirth. The socket is a jed pillar representing stability, while the box is a shrine. Together, the imagery forms a cohesive mythological scene about the dawn of life, not electrical engineering. Even the absence of soot has alternate explanations. Mirrors reflecting sunlight or oil lamps with clever ventilation could have kept ceilings clean. Perhaps the most compelling counterargument lies in the temple's inscriptions themselves. Hieroglyphs surrounding the carvings describe the sun disk's journey through the night, linking the imagery to celestial cycles, not artificial light. The looping snakes mirror the Ouroboros, an ancient symbol of eternity, while the lotus motifs tie into Egyptian beliefs about the sun rising from a primordial flower each morning. It's a poetic metaphor, not a technical diagram, yet the debate persists because it touches on a deeper question: how do we interpret ancient art through modern eyes? We're quick to project our technology onto the past, whether it's light bulbs at Dendera or spaceships in Maya carvings. But sometimes a snake is just a snake, or in this case, a sacred representation of divine energy, not the kind that powers a filament. The Dendera reliefs remind us that ancient civilizations expressed profound ideas through symbolism, not schematics. Their brilliance lay in philosophy, not physics. And maybe that's the real illumination these carvings offer, not a glimpse of forgotten engineering, but a testament to the enduring human drive to explain the mysteries of existence, whether through myth, science, or the shimmering dance of stone under torchlight. Scattered across the misty highlands of northern Laos, thousands of massive stone jars stand like silent sentinels in the grass, some as tall as a person, others large enough to climb inside, their origins lost to time. This is the Plain of Jars, one of Southeast Asia's most haunting archaeological mysteries. Carved from solid rock between 500 BC and 500 CE, these colossal vessels weigh up to 14 tons each, their purpose as enigmatic as the civilization that left them behind. The leading theory suggests they were part of an elaborate burial ritual. Excavations have uncovered human remains, pottery fragments, and iron tools buried near the jars, hinting at a culture that placed their dead inside or alongside these stone giants. Some archaeologists believe the jars acted as decomposition vessels, where bodies were left to decompose before bones were cleaned and moved to secondary burial sites. Others speculate they held food or rice wine for funeral feasts, a send-off for the departed. But what makes this site even more compelling is its eerie resemblance to megalithic jar burials found as far away as India and Indonesia, suggesting a forgotten network of ancient trade or cultural exchange across the region. Yet the Plain of Jars carries a darker legacy, one written not in stone but in metal. During the Vietnam War, American forces carpet-bombed Laos in a covert campaign, leaving the landscape littered with unexploded ordnance. To this day, less than 10% of the jars are accessible to visitors. The rest sit in fields still seeded with deadly remnants. It's a cruel irony, an ancient burial ground turned modern graveyard by conflict, where archaeologists must work alongside bomb disposal teams to uncover secrets beneath the soil. A UNESCO designation of the site as a World Heritage Monument in 2019 was both a celebration and a plea for preservation. The jars have weathered 2,000 years of monsoons and war, but now face new threats from looters and climate erosion. Laser scanning efforts in 2021 revealed previously unknown underground burial chambers near the jars, proving there's still much to learn. Walking among these ancient vessels, you can't help but wonder, what stories would they tell if they could speak? Were they crafted for kings or commoners? Do their patterns hold celestial alignments, or are they simply the fingerprints of long-lost artisans? The Plain of Jars doesn't offer answers. It stands in stubborn silence, a testament to humanity's endless urge to memorialize the dead, even as the living continue to stumble through history's unexploded shadows. In the quiet halls of Baghdad's National Museum, a collection of bizarre clay figurines stares back with hollow, almond-shaped eyes, elongated heads, slitted pupils, and bodies that seem part human, part reptile. These are the Ubaid lizardmen, artifacts dating back 7,000 years to Mesopotamia's Ubaid period, long before the rise of Sumer or Babylon. Unearthed in the early 20th century from sites like Eridu and these statues range from tiny amulets to life-sized figures, many cradling infants or breastfeeding, their lizard-like features rendered with unsettling precision. But what do they represent? A forgotten cult of serpent deities, figments of ancient hallucinogenic rituals, or, as some fringe theorists insist, evidence of extraterrestrial visitors who walked among early humans? Archaeologists lean toward symbolic interpretations. The Ubaid culture, a precursor to Sumerian civilization, revered water and fertility themes often linked to reptiles in Mesopotamian lore. The Tigris and Euphrates teemed with snakes and amphibians, creatures embodying regeneration due to their shedding skins and aquatic habitats. Some scholars suggest these figurines depict shamanic transformations, where priests donned reptilian attributes during rituals to channel divine power. Others see them as protective household gods, their exaggerated features meant to ward off evil. The maternal poses, particularly statues nursing lizard-like babies, might symbolize a primordial mother goddess bridging human and animal realms, a concept echoed later in Sumerian myths like Tiamat, the dragon-like chaos deity. Yet the ancient astronaut theory refuses to fade. Proponents point to the figurines' unnaturally elongated skulls and tapered faces, features absent in Ubaid human remains, as proof of otherworldly influence. They argue that similar reptilian motifs appear globally, from the feathered serpent Kukulkan of the Maya to Australia's rainbow serpent, suggesting a shared memory of extraterrestrial encounters. Even the figurines' postures, with their hips tilted as if adapted for a non-human gait, fuel speculation. Could these be artistic renditions of visitors from the stars, or perhaps a hybrid species engineered by advanced beings? Mainstream science dismisses this as pseudo-history, but the persistence of the theory reveals something fascinating: our instinct to project the unexplained onto cosmic canvases. The truth may lie in a blend of both perspectives. The Ubaid people were transitioning from hunter-gatherers to farmers, their world brimming with new dangers and wonders. Reptiles, both life-giving and lethal, embodied this duality, symbols of nature's caprice. Crafting these figures might have been a way to literalize their fears and hopes, just as modern sci-fi uses aliens to explore societal anxieties. The Ubaid lizardmen aren't just artifacts, they're mirrors. Whether reflecting gods, hallucinations, or star-born visitors, they remind us that ancient art was never just decoration. It was a dialogue with the unknown, etched in clay for millennia to ponder. On a quiet Minnesota farm in 1898, a Swedish immigrant named Olof Oman stumbled over a slab of grey-wacky sandstone while clearing trees, a rock that would ignite one of North America's fiercest historical debates. The Kensington runestone, as it came to be known, bore strange markings that, when translated, revealed a chilling message: 8 Goths and 22 Norwegians on a journey of exploration from Vinland. We camped by 2 skerries, one day's journey north from this stone. We were out fishing one day. After we came home, we found 10 men red with blood and dead. A VM save us from evil. Dated 1362, this inscription suggested Norse explorers ventured deep into mainland America over a century before Columbus, only to meet a gruesome end. But was it a genuine Viking artifact or an elaborate hoax? The answer depends on who you ask and why they're invested in the story. From the moment the runestone surfaced, experts clashed over its authenticity. Linguists noted glaring inconsistencies. The runes mixed medieval and modern forms, while the language resembled 19th century Swedish more than Old Norse. Geologists pointed to the stone's sharp, unweathered grooves, suggesting they'd been carved recently, not 6 centuries earlier. The clincher, Oman had a well-documented fascination with Viking history and owned books on runes, fueling suspicions he'd crafted the stone to impress his Scandinavian-American community. Yet defenders counter with intriguing evidence. The stone's weathering patterns, when analyzed in the 21st century, showed mineral deposits in the carvings consistent with centuries of exposure. Some rune forms match obscure variants used in remote parts of Sweden during the 1400s, knowledge unlikely for a poor farmer to possess. The runestone's cultural impact transcends academic debate. For generations of Scandinavian immigrants, it became a symbol of pride, proof their ancestors had paved the way in the New World long before other Europeans. Local festivals celebrate it, museums display replicas, and roadside attractions draw tourists eager to snap photos with this contested piece of history. The stone's lore even inspired a wave of Norse-themed place names across Minnesota, from Viking Mall to Runestone Hill. But the most fascinating twist emerged in 2018 when researchers applied 3D scanning to the stone. Hidden beneath the surface, they detected microscopic tool marks matching implements found at authenticated Norse sites in Greenland. Could Oman have stumbled upon a genuine artifact and enhanced it with his own carvings, muddying the waters? Or did sheer coincidence lead him to mimic ancient techniques perfectly? The Kensington runestone remains a Rorschach test of heritage and identity. To dismiss it outright ignores the passion it ignites. To accept it uncritically overlooks the gaps in its story. Perhaps its true power lies not in proving Vikings reached Minnesota, but in reminding us how history is shaped as much by the tales we choose to believe as by the facts we can prove. In a small Peruvian town called Ica, a collection of peculiar stones has stirred controversy for decades. These so-called Ica stones, numbering in the thousands, depict scenes that defy conventional history: humans interacting with dinosaurs, performing advanced surgeries, and even studying celestial maps with telescopes. The most baffling part, many of these engravings show humans coexisting with creatures like Triceratops and Stegosaurs, species that went extinct 65 million years before modern humans walked the earth. The story begins in the 1960s when a local farmer named Basilio Ashuya claimed to have discovered these stones in a network of caves. Doctors and archaeologists initially marveled at the intricate carvings, which included detailed depictions of organ transplants, cesarean sections, and blood transfusions procedures far beyond pre-Columbian medical knowledge. Some stones even showed humans hunting dinosaurs with spears or riding them like livestock, images that sent creationists and ancient astronaut theorists into a frenzy. Was this proof of a lost civilization with knowledge of paleontology, or evidence that humans and dinosaurs somehow shared the same era? But the mystery took a sharp turn in 1973 when Ashuya admitted to a British newspaper that he'd carved the stones himself using dental tools and aging them with cow dung. He claimed to have been inspired by comic books and school textbooks to create the designs, selling them to tourists as genuine artifacts. Case closed. Not entirely. Despite the confession, a stubborn faction of believers insist some stones predate Ashuya's hoax. They point to older collections in regional museums and reports from Spanish colonists mentioning similar engraved stones in the 1600s. Why does skepticism persist? Part of it stems from the stone's uncanny accuracy in depicting dinosaur anatomy. Some carvings feature correct skeletal structures and muscle placements that weren't fully understood by modern science until the late 20th century. Details an uneducated farmer in the 1960s would have struggled to replicate. Then there's the matter of the stone's material. Geological testing revealed many are andesite, an extremely hard rock that would have required sophisticated tools to carve, not just simple chisels. Perhaps the most compelling argument for authenticity comes from the stone's cultural context. The region around Ica has a long tradition of ceremonial stone carving, with legitimate pre-Inca artifacts displaying similar artistic styles. Could Ashuya have stumbled upon a cache of real ancient stones and added his own embellishments to meet tourist demand? Or did he tap into an oral tradition passed down through generations, one that preserved fragmented memories of creatures we'd only later identify as dinosaurs? The Ica stones stand at a crossroads between archaeology and mythology. Even if most are modern fakes, their existence forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the line between hoax and history isn't as clear as we'd like. Whether clever forgeries or distorted echoes of an unimaginable past, these enigmatic stones continue to challenge our assumptions about time, knowledge, and the stories we tell to make sense of the unexplained. On the wind-swept shores of Easter Island, amidst the towering Moai statues that have captivated the world, lies a far more elusive mystery, a set of wooden tablets covered in swirling, indecipherable glyphs known as rongo-rongo. Discovered in the mid-19th century, these intricate carvings are the only known example of a writing system in all of Polynesia, a script so complex that despite over a century of effort, no one has ever cracked its code. But the story of rongo-rongo isn't just about linguistic puzzles. It's a haunting reflection of the island's ecological collapse, a tale of deforestation, warring clans, and a desperate turn toward the chilling Birdman cult in the face of societal ruin. The tablets themselves are as enigmatic as the civilization that created them. Made from driftwood or the island's rare Toromero trees, their glyphs flow in a unique reverse boustrophedon pattern, lines of text that alternate direction, snaking back and forth like a plowed field. Some symbols resemble plants, animals, or tools, while others are abstract geometric shapes that defy interpretation. The few surviving tablets scattered in museums from Berlin to Santiago hint at sacred chants, genealogies, or even astronomical records, but without a Rosetta Stone to unlock their meaning, they remain as silent as the moe gazing inland. What makes Rongorongo especially tragic is its connection to Easter Island's downfall. By the time European missionaries arrived in the 1860s, the islanders had already forgotten how to read the script. This cultural amnesia mirrors the island's ecological catastrophe. Centuries of rampant deforestation for statue transport and agriculture led to soil erosion, crop failure, and starvation. As resources vanished, clans turned on one another, toppling rival moe in a brutal wave of iconoclasm. By 1722, Dutch explorers reported a society in ruins, its people reduced to living in caves, their once thriving civilization reduced to fragments. Amid this collapse emerged the Birdman cult, a chilling ritual born of desperation. Each year, warriors would race down sheer cliffs to retrieve the first sooty-tern egg of the season from the offshore islet of Motu Nui. The winner's clan gained control of the island's dwindling resources for a year, a shift from the old moe-centric religion to a new, survivalist ideology. Some researchers believe Rongorongo tablets may chronicle this transition, their glyphs encoding the prayers or prophecies of a society teetering on the brink. The irony is as sharp as the island's volcanic rock. The same people who carved Rongorongo, perhaps recording warnings about their shrinking forests, were powerless to stop their demise. Today, the tablets stand as both artifact and allegory, a cautionary tale about what happens when a civilization's wisdom outlasts its ability to heed it. Linguists still puzzle over the glyphs, hoping against hope that one day a key will surface. But even if it never does, Rongorongo's true lesson might already be clear. The most important messages aren't just the ones we write, but the ones we choose to remember. Of all the crystal skulls that have surfaced over the years, none has sparked more fascination or controversy than the Mitchell-Hedges skull. Unlike the cruder examples gathering dust in museum backrooms, this one is a masterpiece of optical precision, carved from a single block of flawless quartz with a detachable jaw that fits seamlessly. Its surface is so unnaturally smooth, so free of tool marks, that engineers have claimed it would take modern diamond-tipped lasers to replicate such craftsmanship today. But here's where the story takes a sharp turn into the shadows. Despite its reputation as an ancient Mesoamerican relic, this skull's origins are far murkier than its polished surface. The official tale begins in 1924, when adventurer F.A. Mitchell-Hedges claimed his teenage daughter Anna discovered it beneath a collapsed altar in the ruins of Lubuntan, Belize. He described it as a sacred object used by Maya priests to will death through focused thought, a story straight out of pulp magazines. But decades later, researchers uncovered a paper trail suggesting Mitchell-Hedges likely purchased the skull at a 1943 Sotheby's auction. The seller, none other than his own associate, Sidney Burney, who displayed it as Aztec in a London exhibition years before Anna's supposed jungle discovery. Suddenly, the narrative of an ancient artifact crumbled under the weight of receipts. Scientific testing only deepened the skepticism. In 2008, the British Museum and Smithsonian subjected similar crystal skulls to electron microscopy, revealing rotary tool marks invisible to the naked eye, hallmarks of 19th-century European lapidary techniques. Quartz expert Margaret Sachs noted the Mitchell-Hedges skull's near-impossible symmetry could only be achieved with modern polishing wheels, while trace elements in the stone pointed to Brazilian or Madagascan mines, not Mesoamerican sources. Even Anna Mitchell-Hedges herself quietly shifted her story late in life, admitting the skull might have been polished by hand rather than carved from scratch by ancient hands. Yet the skull's allure persists, fed by a cocktail of Hollywood myth-making and New Age mysticism. In the 1970s, psychic experiments alleged the object emitted strange electromagnetic fields or projected visions of Atlantis. These claims, though never scientifically verified, cemented its status as a pop culture icon, an emblem of lost civilizations and esoteric knowledge. The real irony, while the skull itself is almost certainly a Victorian fabrication, its legend inadvertently resurrected a genuine archaeological mystery. Pre-Columbian cultures did carve symbolic skulls from obsidian and jade, some with movable jaws for ritual use. The Mitchell-Hedges hoax didn't just deceive, it obscured the true ingenuity of indigenous artisans beneath layers of colonial fantasy. What makes this artifact so captivating isn't its debunked origin story, but what it reveals about our own thirst for the exotic. The skull became a blank screen onto which generations projected their desires, forbidden knowledge, alien contact, or proof of forgotten super-civilizations. In the end, the Mitchell-Hedges skull's greatest trick wasn't its supposed psychic powers, but its ability to remind us that sometimes the most enduring mysteries aren't buried in ancient ruins, but hidden in plain sight, polished to perfection by our own yearning to believe. In the dead of night on April 10, 1934, a lone figure scaled the scaffolding of St. Bavo Cathedral in Ghent, Belgium, and slipped inside with a single goal: to steal one of the most revered masterpieces of the Northern Renaissance. The target, a panel from Jan van Eyck's Ghent altarpiece known as the Just Judges. What followed wasn't just an art heist, but a decades-long odyssey of ransom notes, Nazi plunder, and an unsolved mystery that still haunts investigators today. The stolen panel was no ordinary painting. Part of a 20-piece polyptych completed in 1432, the Just Judges depicted a radiant procession of biblical and contemporary figures, its pigments mixed with rare oils that gave the figures an almost lifelike glow. Within hours of the theft, the cathedral's priest received a ransom demand, 200,000 Belgian francs for its return. But here's where the plot thickens. The middleman delivering the notes was a shadowy figure named Arsène Godetier, a stockbroker with ties to the underworld. Before he could reveal the panel's location, he collapsed in church, whispering with his dying breath, "Only I know where the judges are hidden, in a place where neither I nor anyone else can take it away without attracting public attention." Enter the Nazis. During their occupation of Belgium in World War II, Hitler's art thieves seized the entire altarpiece, intending to display it in their Führer Museum. Miraculously, Allied forces recovered most of it in an Austrian salt mine in 1945, but the Just Judges was never found. Some believe it was destroyed in the chaos of war, while others insist it was smuggled away by a high-ranking officer. FBI files declassified in 2017 reveal an even stranger twist. Tips still trickle in about the panel's possible whereabouts, from Swiss bank vaults to private collections in Argentina. One theory suggests it's hidden in plain sight, perhaps concealed behind another painting or built into the structure of a European chapel, just as Godetier hinted. The most tantalizing clue emerged in 2020 when researchers using infrared scans discovered a hidden inscription on the altarpiece's frame, a series of numbers matching coordinates near the cathedral. Could this be a coded message left by the thieves, or a red herring meant to send treasure hunters on a wild goose chase? The truth remains as elusive as the judges themselves, their painted faces frozen in time, waiting silently for the day their stolen legacy finally comes to light. Among the ancient parchment fragments of the Dead Sea Scrolls, one artifact stands apart not for its religious revelations, but for what it appears to be: an ancient treasure map etched onto sheets of copper so thin they nearly crumbled when unrolled. This is the Copper Scroll, a cryptic inventory of 64 hiding places scattered across the Judean wilderness, each supposedly concealing unimaginable wealth, tons of silver and gold, priestly vestments, and even a second copy of the scroll itself. Unlike its biblical counterparts, this text reads like a ledger listing locations with eerie precision. In the ruin that is in the valley of Acca, 40 cubits under the steps entering to the east, a chest of silver and its vessels. Yet despite centuries of searching, not a single shekel from these promised troves has ever surfaced. Why would such a detailed document exist if its treasures were never meant to be found? Theories about the copper scroll's purpose are as divided as the terrain it describes. Some scholars believe it records the temple's wealth, hidden ahead of the Roman siege of Jerusalem in 70 CE. Others argue it's a fictional allegory, like the biblical parable of hidden treasure, meant to symbolize spiritual riches. The most compelling evidence for authenticity comes from the scroll's physicality. Copper was a deliberate choice, far more durable than parchment, suggesting the author intended this list to endure. Yet the instructions are maddeningly vague. Directions reference landmarks long vanished, a solitary oak or a cave near the ford. Even the measurements use obsolete units like cubits, leaving modern hunters digging blindly in the desert. Modern technology has only deepened the mystery. Ground-penetrating radar and satellite imaging have identified potential matches for some locations, like the ruins of Qumran or the cliffs of Wadi Murabat. In the 1960s, a team following the scroll's clues unearthed a small pottery shard near an ancient cistern, but no treasure. Skeptics point to this as proof the scroll is symbolic, perhaps a coded text for initiates of a secret sect. But then why etch it in metal unless the stakes were real? The copper scroll's greatest riddle may lie in its final entry, a cryptic note about a duplicate scroll hidden elsewhere containing even more precise instructions. Was this a safeguard against loss or a deliberate tease to future seekers? Every expedition that fails brings us closer to a tantalizing possibility that the treasure isn't gone, just waiting for someone to read between the lines. Whether the scroll is a practical guide or an elaborate metaphor, one thing's certain. It's a reminder that sometimes history's greatest riches aren't gold or silver, but the enduring thrill of the hunt. Deep beneath the Hofburg Palace in Vienna, encased in a gilded reliquary, rests a spearhead that has ignited wars, inspired empires, and captured the obsession of tyrants, the Holy Lance, also known as the Spear of Longinus. According to the Gospel of John, this was the weapon thrust into Christ's side during the crucifixion, a moment that transformed an ordinary Roman soldier's tool into one of Christianity's most venerated relics. But what makes this artifact uniquely compelling isn't just its biblical connection, it's the chilling trail of blood and power that follows it through history, from the hands of emperors to the vaults of Nazi occultists. The lance's documented journey begins in the 8th century, when Charlemagne supposedly carried it into 33 victorious battles, believing it rendered him invincible. Later, Holy Roman emperors held it during coronations, claiming divine legitimacy from its touch. But the relic's darkest chapter unfolded in 1938, when Adolf Hitler seized it after annexing Austria. Obsessed with occult symbolism, Hitler believed the lance granted its holder the power to shape destiny, a conviction fueled by medieval legends that warned, whoever possesses this holy lance holds the fate of the world in his hands. He stored it in Nuremberg's underground vaults, where Allied forces recovered it in 1945, just hours before his suicide. The timing fueled wild speculation. Had the lance's power abandoned him in his final moments? Yet Vienna's lance isn't the only contender for the title. At least 3 other spears claim the same sacred lineage, one in Armenia's Echmiadzin Cathedral, another in Krakow's Wall Castle, and a third in the Vatican. The Krakow version, gifted to Poland by a Byzantine emperor, bears a surprising scientific quirk. Metallurgical analysis dates its iron to the 1st century, matching the Roman era. Meanwhile, the Vatican's lance, housed in St. Peter's Basilica, lacks a blade entirely. Its point is a nail purportedly from the true cross inserted into a hollow tip. These discrepancies raise a provocative question. If the original lance was a simple infantry weapon, mass-produced for Rome's legions, could multiple spears legitimately trace back to Golgotha? What unites these rival relics isn't just their shared mythos, but the human hunger to possess the divine. For medieval kings, the lance was a political tool, a way to cloak ambition in holiness. For Hitler, it was a talisman of twisted ideology, and for modern pilgrims, perhaps it's a mirror reflecting our timeless desire to touch the intangible, to hold proof of the sacred in a world that so often feels untethered from miracles. Whether any of these spears truly drew Christ's blood may never be proven, but their power lies not in their provenance, but in the stories we've forged around them, century after century, like steel hammered into legend. Death Valley's racetrack playa is one of the most surreal landscapes on Earth, a flat, dry lakebed where rocks, some weighing hundreds of pounds, appear to slide across the desert as if guided by invisible hands. For over a century, these sailing stones baffled scientists and visitors alike, leaving behind winding trails etched into the cracked mud like the brushstrokes of a ghost. How could objects so heavy move so far without any visible force pushing them? The answer, uncovered only in the last decade, turns out to be a perfect storm of ice, wind, and physics so precise it borders on artistry. The mystery hinged on two key puzzles. The rocks only moved sporadically, sometimes lying still for years before suddenly shifting anew, and their trails often curved or zigzagged unpredictably. Early theories ranged from pranksters hoisting them in the dead of night to magnetic anomalies or even alien interference. But the breakthrough came in 2014, when a team of researchers equipped with time-lapse cameras and GPS sensors caught the phenomenon in action. Their footage revealed a delicate ballet of conditions. First, winter rains flood the playa, creating a shallow sheet of water. Then, on cold desert nights, this water freezes into thin, glassy panes of ice around the rocks. As morning sun warms the ice, it fractures into floating sheets, which light winds barely 7 to 10 miles per hour push across the slick mud. The rocks embedded in these icy rafts glide effortlessly in their wake, scraping trails into the sediment below. What's fascinating is how deceptively simple this process is, yet how perfectly every variable must align. The ice must be thick enough to grip the rocks but thin enough to break and move. The mud beneath must be wet enough to stay slippery but firm enough to preserve the trails. Even the rock's shape plays a role. Flatter ones sail farther, while bulkier ones pivot, carving those dramatic curves. The phenomenon is so fragile, scientists estimate it might only happen once or twice a decade under just the right conditions, a reminder that nature's greatest magic tricks often unfold on timelines too slow for human patience. The sailing stones embody a paradox. Their movement looks impossible until you see it, yet once understood, it feels inevitable. They're a testament to the quiet, persistent forces that shape our world, not with cataclysmic drama, but with the patient nudges of ice cracking, winds whispering, and time itself bending the rules. And perhaps that's the real lesson here. Sometimes the most extraordinary mysteries aren't about hidden forces or lost technologies, but about learning to see the ordinary world with new eyes. Beneath layers of medieval myth and Renaissance obsession lies a single sheet of greenish stone, inscribed with words so cryptic they've haunted alchemists for over 1,000 years. This is the Emerald Tablet, a relic attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, the legendary sage said to be both an Egyptian god and a Greek philosopher. Its text, barely a paragraph long, distills the secrets of the universe into a handful of enigmatic lines. As above, so below, it declares, suggesting the cosmos mirrors the earthly realm. That which is inferior is like that which is superior. To the uninitiated, these words might sound like mystical poetry, but to figures like Isaac Newton, who spent decades poring over its verses, they held the key to unlocking nature's deepest mysteries, including the fabled power to transmute base metals into gold. Newton's fascination with the tablet wasn't eccentric hobby. He translated its text meticulously, convinced it encoded the principles of gravity and light. His private journals reveal a startling truth. The man who rationalized the universe with mathematics also believed ancient alchemists possessed lost wisdom modern science had yet to rediscover. The tablet's influence bled into his work from optics to calculus, bridging the gap between empirical rigor and esoteric intuition. But he wasn't alone in his obsession. Medieval Arab scholars like Jabir ibn Hayyan structured entire schools of chemistry around its axioms, while Renaissance magus John Dee used it as a cipher for communicating with angels. Even Carl Jung saw it as a metaphor for the human psyche, where inner transformation mirrored cosmic order. What makes this tiny text so enduring? Its genius lies in deliberate ambiguity. Unlike rigid scientific formulas, the tablet's language is a prism. Each reader projects their own meaning onto its words. For some, as above, so below describes planetary orbits influencing human fate. For others, it's a blueprint for spiritual enlightenment, where refining lead into gold symbolizes purifying the soul. Modern physicists even find eerie parallels in quantum entanglement, where particles mirror each other across vast distances. Yet the tablet's greatest trick might be its ability to defy time. Originally written in Arabic, though claimed to be far older, it survived the burning of Alexandria's libraries, the suppression of alchemy by the Church, and the scorn of Enlightenment rationalists. Today, it's celebrated not as a literal recipe for gold, but as a testament to humanity's unshakable belief that the universe hides patterns waiting to be decoded. Whether those patterns are chemical, spiritual, or mathematical depends on who holds the stone, and what they're willing to see in its gleaming, enigmatic surface. Beneath the sweeping plains of Xi'an, hidden beyond the ranks of 8,000 terracotta warriors, lies a tomb so perilous, so laden with ancient warnings, that even modern archaeologists dare not breach its sealed chambers. This is the undisturbed heart of Emperor Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum, a necropolis rumored to house wonders beyond imagination, from miniature cities to flowing rivers of toxic mercury, all protected by mechanical crossbows and cunning traps designed to kill intruders on sight. While the excavated terracotta army has captivated the world, the emperor's actual burial mound remains one of China's most tantalizing archaeological frontiers, a treasure chest no one has yet found the courage or the means to fully open. Historical records from the Han Dynasty scribe Sima Qian paint a spine-chilling picture of the tomb's interior, a subterranean universe mirroring Qin's empire, with constellations of pearls embedded in the ceiling to mimic stars and rivers of liquid mercury representing the mighty Yangtze and Yellow rivers. Mercury in ancient China symbolized immortality, a fitting obsession for the emperor who spent his life chasing eternal life through elixirs and alchemy. But here's where science catches up to legend. Soil tests around the mound reveal mercury concentrations 50 times higher than normal, suggesting those rivers might not be mere metaphor. The toxic element, deadly to breathe or touch, could explain why even looters avoided the site for millennia. Yet mercury isn't the only hazard guarding Qin's secrets. Sima Qian's texts describe automated arrows triggered by trip mechanisms, an ancient security system possibly inspired by the repeating crossbows Qin's armies wielded. While skeptics argue such traps would have decayed over 2,000 years, similar mechanisms have been found in Egyptian pyramids and Greek tombs, the real fear. Disturbing the tomb's delicate microclimate, when the terracotta warriors were first unearthed, their vivid pigments flaked off within minutes of exposure to air. The burial chamber, sealed under layers of compacted earth and charcoal to resist moisture, could preserve organic materials like silk, wood, or even the emperor's body itself, but only if left untouched. China's current policy is one of reverence through restraint. High-tech surveys using muon radiography and ground-penetrating radar hint at sprawling underground structures, including a 90-foot-tall central chamber, but official reports emphasize preservation over excavation. "We're not just fighting time," explains archaeologist Zhu Weihong. "We're fighting our own limitations. Open the tomb too soon and we might lose more than we gain." This caution is rooted in bitter experience. When Beijing's Dingling tomb was opened in the 1950s, silk robes and wooden artifacts disintegrated before researchers' eyes, a cultural tragedy still mourned today. But perhaps the greatest mystery isn't what the tomb contains, but why Qin demanded such extravagance in death. Was it sheer megalomania, or did he genuinely believe his Mercury rivers would ferry him to an immortal realm? The answer may lie in the tomb's most enigmatic rumored feature, a map of the cosmos with the emperor's sarcophagus at its center, poised between heaven and earth. Until the day technology allows us to peer inside without destroying its wonders, Qin's underground empire remains a riddle wrapped in poison, guarded by clay and time. And so, the Terracotta Army keeps its silent watch, standing sentinel over secrets even they were never meant to see. On a rainy night in July 1907, thieves slipped into Dublin Castle's heavily guarded Bedford Tower and pulled off one of the most audacious heists in royal history, the disappearance of the Order of St. Patrick's crown jewels, a glittering set of insignia so precious they were considered Ireland's answer to England's crown jewels. The stolen haul included a diamond-studded star and badge, along with a ceremonial collarette encrusted with 394 gemstones, treasures worth millions today. But what makes this theft truly extraordinary isn't just the vanished loot. It's the web of suspects that stretches from Irish nationalist circles to the highest echelons of British royalty, tangled in rumors of political sabotage, secret melting, and a cover-up so thorough the truth may never surface. At the heart of the scandal was the jewel's symbolic weight, created in 1783 to cement British authority over Ireland. The regalia represented everything Irish rebels despised. By the early 20th century, with independence fervor boiling over, the jewels became a target. Suspicion immediately fell on Irish Republicans, particularly members of the Gaelic Athletic Association, whose members had access to the castle due to their roles as caretakers. One name surfaced repeatedly: Francis Shackleton, brother to famed Antarctic explorer Ernest Shackleton and a close friend of the castle's marshal. Shackleton's extravagant debts and ties to nationalist sympathizers made him a prime suspect, yet despite a high-profile investigation, no charges were ever filed. The plot thickened when whispers emerged of royal involvement. King Edward VII, infuriated by the theft's embarrassment, allegedly ordered a private inquiry that uncovered a far juicier scandal. The jewels may have been collateral in a blackmail scheme involving Shackleton and a prominent aristocrat in a homosexual affair, a taboo so explosive in Edwardian England that suppressing the truth became a matter of crown security. Officially, the case was buried as not in the public interest, fueling speculation that the investigation was sabotaged to avoid exposure. But the most enduring mystery is the jewels' fate. Some believe they were smuggled to America and sold piecemeal, their gems recut to avoid detection. Others insist Irish rebels melted them down in a symbolic act of defiance, pouring the molten gold into the River Liffey. In 2018, archivists uncovered a bombshell memo hinting that Scotland Yard knew the culprits but was ordered to stand down, implicating a conspiracy reaching straight to the throne. Today, the empty display case in Dublin Castle stands as a silent monument to a heist that was more than theft. It was a political strike, a royal scandal, and perhaps the perfect crime lost to history's shadowy corners. In the sun-scorched deserts of northern Mexico, there's a patch of earth where the laws of physics seem to unravel, a place where radios crackle into silence, compasses spin wildly, and locals swear the sky crackles with otherworldly visitors. This is the Mapimi Silent Zone, a stretch of the Chihuahuan Desert so eerily isolated, it's earned the nickname Mexico's Bermuda Triangle. But unlike its ocean-dwelling counterpart, this mystery isn't just about vanishing ships, it's about a land where science and myth collide in ways that defy easy explanation. The legend began in July 1970, when an American Athena missile test veered wildly off course and crashed into the desert near the tiny village of Ceballos. When recovery teams arrived, they allegedly found their communication equipment useless, their instruments glitching as if seized by an invisible hand. Word spread quickly, and soon researchers descended on the area, uncovering even stranger reports. Locals spoke of floating orbs, sudden temperature drops, and even magnetic anomalies that could shut down car engines without warning. By the 1980s, the zone had become a magnet for UFO hunters who claimed it was a hotspot for extraterrestrial activity, a place where they could communicate without human interference. Scientists, however, offer a less sensational explanation. The region sits within a unique geomagnetic zone where Earth's crust is unusually rich in iron-rich deposits, a natural quirk that could disrupt radio waves and compass readings. Similar phenomena occur in places like Michigan's Upper Peninsula, where iron concentrations create localized magnetic disturbances. But here's where things get murky. While these deposits might explain some technical oddities, they don't account for the vivid eyewitness accounts of hovering lights or the infamous burned bushes, patches of scorched vegetation with no clear ignition source. Skeptics argue the zone's reputation is equal parts folk tradition and clever tourism. The area's isolation and harsh climate make it ripe for tall tales, and the Mexican government hasn't shied from leaning into the mystique, even installing a silent zone welcome sign for visitors. Yet some anomalies resist easy dismissal. In 2014, a team of geologists documented bizarre infrasound patterns in the area, low-frequency vibrations inaudible to humans but linked to disorientation and unease in other haunted hotspots like Scotland's Rosslyn Chapel. Could these vibrations explain the zone's unnerving effect on people, or are they just another piece of the puzzle? What makes the Mapimi Silent Zone so compelling isn't just the debate between science and folklore, it's the way it exposes our hunger for the unexplained. In an age of satellites and smartphones, the idea of a place where technology falters and the unknown still reigns is intoxicating. Whether you blame magnets, aliens, or the sheer power of a good story, one thing's certain. In this corner of the desert, silence speaks louder than words. And sometimes the most enduring mysteries aren't about finding answers, but learning how to live with the questions. In the ancient temple complex of Lepakshi, nestled in India's southern state of Andhra Pradesh, one architectural marvel defies both gravity and explanation: the hanging pillar. This single stone column, part of a grand hall supported by 70 other pillars, dangles mysteriously above the floor, leaving just enough space for a thin sheet of cloth or even a human hand to slide effortlessly beneath it. Carved from a single block of granite during the 16th century Vijayanagara Empire, this pillar has baffled engineers and historians for centuries, not just for its defiance of physics, but for the whispered legends of its unshakable resilience against deliberate destruction. The pillar's suspension isn't its only mystery. Tap it gently and it produces a resonant, almost musical hum, a feature that has led experts to speculate it was designed as part of the temple's acoustic system, amplifying chants and rituals throughout the hall. Some believe the hollow space beneath it acts as a natural sound chamber, a deliberate innovation by architects who understood harmonic principles long before modern science formalized them. Others suggest it's a symbolic feat, representing the Vijayanagara Empire's engineering prowess, a visual metaphor for the divine support holding up the universe itself. But the pillar's most enduring tale comes from the colonial era, when British troops, skeptical of its seemingly magical suspension, attempted to dislodge it with elephants and ropes during the 19th century. Legend claims their efforts not only failed but triggered a series of misfortunes, convincing the soldiers to abandon the task. Whether by divine intervention or brilliant engineering, the pillar refused to budge, an anecdote that blends history with folklore, leaving modern visitors to wonder. Was its stability a product of advanced mechanics or something far more enigmatic? Structural engineers who have studied the temple propose a fascinating theory. The entire hall's weight distribution might rely on the precise positioning of each pillar, creating a delicate equilibrium where the hanging pillar appears to float but is actually bearing its share of the load through cleverly calculated pressure points. This subtle balance would explain why tampering with one pillar could threaten the entire structure, a risk even colonial forces hesitated to take. Today, the hanging pillar stands as both a tourist curiosity and an architectural riddle. It challenges our assumptions about ancient technology, reminding us that the past holds innovations we're only beginning to comprehend. Whether viewed as a sacred anomaly or a stroke of engineering genius, this pillar does more than hover. It invites us to question what else history might be hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to reveal its secrets. Beneath the cobblestone streets and towering onion domes of Moscow, a legend persists, one that has driven Tsars, revolutionaries, and even Soviet secret police to dig, bribe, and scour the Kremlin's shadowy corridors in search of a treasure more valuable than gold. This is the lost library of Ivan the Terrible, a fabled trove of ancient manuscripts said to contain forgotten Greek and Roman classics, heretical Gnostic Gospels, and even texts from the Library of Alexandria itself. According to lore, Ivan inherited the collection from his grandmother, Sophia Paleologina, a Byzantine princess who fled Constantinople with crates of scrolls before it fell to the Ottomans in 1453. But after Ivan's death in 1584, the library vanished without a trace, leaving behind only cryptic references in diplomatic letters and monastic inventories, and sparking a hunt that would stretch into the modern era. What makes this mystery so tantalizing is the specificity of the clues. 16th century accounts describe a hidden vault beneath the Kremlin's armory chamber, accessible only through a labyrinth of tunnels. German mercenaries stationed in Moscow during Ivan's reign wrote of secret chambers where scribes copied pagan works under flickering torchlight, even more compelling. In 1962, construction workers near the Kremlin uncovered a sealed underground room filled with wooden chests before Soviet officials abruptly halted the dig and classified all findings. Was this the library or merely another dead end in a centuries-long wild goose chase? Stalin's obsession with the library adds a chilling layer to the story. The Soviet dictator commissioned multiple covert searches throughout the 1930s, tasking the NKVD with interrogating historians and excavating beneath the Kremlin in secret. Some speculate he sought esoteric knowledge to bolster his regime's power, while others believe he wanted to destroy evidence of Russia's pre-Christian past. Files declassified in the 1990s reveal agents even probed the walls of Ivan's own palace, convinced he'd left behind a map in the form of coded frescoes. Yet the most intriguing theory comes from contemporary archaeologists who suggest the library might never have been a single collection at all. Instead, Ivan could have scattered the texts across monasteries, a tactic to prevent their destruction. Recent ground-penetrating radar scans near the Solovetsky Monastery revealed anomalies consistent with hidden chambers, while renovations at the Trinity Lavra uncovered bricked-up niches lined with fragments of Greek parchment. Whether the library exists as a unified trove or as fragments waiting to be pieced together, its legend endures because it represents the ultimate historian's fantasy, the possibility that somewhere beneath layers of soil and centuries of intrigue, the lost voices of antiquity still whisper just out of reach. And in a world where knowledge is power, perhaps some secrets are meant to stay buried, at least until the right hand pulls them into the light. From lost civilizations wielding impossible technology to cursed relics dripping with legend, these artifacts have taken us on a journey through history's most tantalizing enigmas. We've seen how the Antikythera Mechanism rewrote the timeline of human ingenuity, revealing that ancient minds grasped celestial mechanics 1,000 years before Europe rediscovered them. The Voynich Manuscript still guards its secrets with ink no cryptographer can crack, while the Baghdad Battery whispers of electricity humming in temples long before Volta or Edison. Some mysteries, like the Nazca Lines celestial maps, have yielded partial answers only to unravel new questions about the cultures that etched them into the earth. Others, like the Copper Scroll's unfound treasure or the Hanging Pillar's defiance of physics, cling stubbornly to their riddles, daring us to keep searching. But let's not forget the wildest theories these artifacts have inspired. Could the Saqqara bird really be proof of ancient flight, or the Dropa stone's evidence of prehistoric alien contact? Did the Mitchell Hedges skull channel supernatural forces, or was it simply a Victorian hoax that outlived its creators? And what about the Georgia Guidestones? Were they a blueprint for post-apocalyptic survival, or an elaborate prank with a darkly prescient message? Even the most outlandish ideas reveal something profound: our need to fill the gaps in history with stories as bold as the artifacts themselves. Yet amid the myths, science has unearthed astonishing truths. We now know the Dead Sea Scrolls preserve voices from a turbulent spiritual dawn, while the Rosetta Stone gave us back an entire civilization's language. The Shroud of Turin, whether medieval art or divine imprint, continues to push forensic technology to its limits. And who could forget the mundane magic of Death Valley's sailing stones, where ice and wind conspire to animate the inanimate? These confirmed discoveries remind us that reality can be just as thrilling as legend. Now it's your turn. Which of these relics fascinates you most? Do you think the Library of Ivan the Terrible still lies buried beneath Moscow, or that Oak Island's money pit hides pirate gold rather than heartbreak? Drop your picks in the comments, and while you're there, tell us which legendary artifact we should explore next: the Ark of the Covenant, the Amber Room, or perhaps something even stranger waiting in a dusty archive or beneath forgotten sands. Because here's the thing, for every mystery we've uncovered, there are countless others still hidden, their stories coiled tight like unopened scrolls. And who knows, the next great discovery might be just a shovel strike away, lurking in the shadows of history, ready to rewrite everything we thought we knew.